Childhood is supposed to fade slowly with age, but for some children it ends with a moment. For most people, childhood gradually dissolves into adulthood through a long series of small transitions. One year you are playing outside with friends, and the next you are worrying about school, responsibilities, and the future. The process is usually gentle and slow, but sometimes life interrupts that rhythm. A child witnesses something that forces their mind to grow older long before their body does. A moment appears when innocence collides with reality. The child suddenly understands things they were never meant to carry. At 7 years old, James discovered something most children should never have to learn. Adults can break. Children naturally believe that the adults around them have everything under control. Parents appear strong, confident, and capable of solving any problem that arises. They represent safety and stability in a world that often feels confusing. But when a child sees those same adults overwhelmed by stress, anger, or emotional exhaustion, the illusion of certainty begins to fracture. Suddenly, the people who once seemed invincible appear fragile and uncertain. The child begins to understand that the structure holding their world together may not be as stable as they believed. And once that realization settles into their mind, it quietly reshapes how they see the world and the people within it. And when a child realizes the adults are falling apart, something begins to change inside their mind. Children are remarkably sensitive to the emotional atmosphere around them. Even when they cannot fully understand the reasons behind conflict or sadness, they can feel it immediately. Raised voices, tense silence, and heavy moods become signals that something is wrong. When those signals appear frequently, the child's mind begins searching for ways to restore balance. They become quieter, more observant, and more cautious with their behavior. Over time, the child starts adjusting their actions to prevent arguments or reduce tension. What begins as a simple instinct for peace gradually evolves into a habit of responsibility that no child should have to carry. Without realizing it, James began paying attention to things children normally ignore. Most children spend their attention exploring the world around them. They focus on games, toys, school activities, and friendships. Their minds are filled with curiosity and imagination. But James slowly began directing his attention elsewhere. Instead of watching cartoons or thinking about games, he started observing moods, reactions, and emotional patterns inside his home. He noticed which words triggered arguments and which actions helped calm the room. The priorities of childhood quietly shifted into something far more serious. James didn't stop being a child overnight, but he slowly stopped living like one. The transformation rarely happens through one dramatic event. Instead, it unfolds through many small adjustments that accumulate over time. James began worrying about moods and arguments rather than toys or games. He learned when to stay quiet, when to step away, while other children explored the world through imagination and play. To everyone else, he still looked like a normal child, but internally, he was becoming something very different. Children who grow up too fast often develop a skill most adults never fully learn. In unstable environments, children become extremely aware of emotional signals. They notice small shifts in tone, expressions, and mood. Over time, they begin quietly evaluating the emotional atmosphere of every room. James slowly became the emotional thermostat of his home. When tension appeared, he became quiet and careful. When arguments started, he tried to calm the situation. Without realizing it, he began adjusting his behavior to maintain peace. Adults began noticing something unusual about him. Teachers and relatives described James as mature and responsible. Compared to other children his age, he seemed calm and controlled. But what they were seeing was not simple discipline. But early maturity often hides a deeper story. Children rarely become overly responsible without a reason. Often it means they have been carrying emotional burdens too early. What looks like maturity can actually be adaptation. Psychologists have a name for this transformation. It is called parentification. In this situation, a child takes on emotional roles that normally belong to adults. Instead of receiving support, they begin providing it. When a child grows up in emotional instability, the brain begins adapting for survival. During childhood, the brain is highly adaptable. When the environment becomes stressful, the mind shifts toward caution and alertness. The child begins preparing for problems before they happen. Psychologists call this state hypervigilance. Hypervigilance means constantly scanning the environment for signs of tension. Even small emotional changes can feel important. Over time, this constant awareness becomes exhausting. James slowly learned to hide his own needs. When others seemed overwhelmed, asking for attention felt risky. James began speaking less and expressing fewer emotions. Silence started to feel safer than vulnerability. But emotions that are pushed aside never truly disappear. Suppressed feelings do not vanish. They remain beneath the surface, sometimes for years. Many children who grow up this way appear calm while carrying unspoken emotions inside. And slowly, the child inside, James, began to retreat. Playfulness gradually gave way to caution and responsibility. While other children explored freely, James was learning to navigate emotional complexity. Years later, that child grew into an adult shaped by the chaos he survived. Children who grow up too fast often become responsible adults. Years of adapting to difficulty can create discipline and resilience. Many become dependable people who handle pressure well. But that strength often comes from an early loss of childhood. But responsibility can sometimes hide emotional exhaustion. Being the strong one for too long can quietly drain a person's energy. Others may see capability, while the individual feels constant pressure. Asking for help can feel uncomfortable. Someone who learned to handle problems alone may struggle to rely on others. Independence becomes their automatic response. Even peaceful moments can feel unfamiliar. When the mind is used to tension, calm environments can feel strange. The brain may stay alert even when nothing is wrong. The survival patterns of childhood follow him into adulthood. The habits that once protected James continue influencing how he works. The habits that once protected James continue influencing how he rests. The habits that once protected James continue influencing how he connects with people. But the child James once was never truly disappeared. Those early experiences remain part of who he is. Many adults who grew up too soon still carry the emotions of that child within them. That child simply learned to stay silent. For years, silence felt safer than expressing emotions. Over time, that quiet restraint became part of James's personality. Healing often begins with recognition. Understanding the past allows someone to see their experiences more clearly. Awareness is often the first step toward change. James begins to understand something important. The responsibilities he carried as a child were never meant for him. They were circumstances he adapted to, not choices he made. He was meant to experience childhood. Like every child, he deserved play, curiosity, and emotional safety. Growing up too fast does not mean childhood is gone forever. It simply means that part of life was experienced differently. Understanding those experiences can bring clarity. Understanding the past allows healing to begin. Healing does not mean forgetting the past. It means recognizing how those experiences shaped who you became. James realizes something important. The strength he developed helped him survive. But survival alone is not the same as living. For the first time, he begins choosing something different. Instead of managing everything around him, he allows himself moments of rest. Some children grow up too fast, but healing allows them to grow again. Sometimes the most powerful step forward is recognizing the child you once were.